morning, everyone. So let's begin today's session. Before that, let's reflect on what we learned yesterday. Yesterday, in the first session, we understood what is IPE, that is interprofessional education, and what is IPC, that is interprofessional collaboration. We understood the concept behind IPE and IPC, that is IPECP, and we understood clearly why there is a need of the hour to start IPE in our professions in order to improvise the overall health outcome of our patient and our society. So, what is it required to start IPECP? Of course, a team. So, in the second session, we learned about having an effective team for a successful IPE task. The third session was all about IPE, that is integrating IPE into the curriculum so as to make our students learn about this theory during their early career life. So when one of the speakers asked you all what might be the concern to start IPE, most of you responded as communication. So let's begin our first session for the day to learn about communication and how to address this concern for an effective IPECP journey. And to do that, we have the first speaker for today's session, Dr. Anand KM, lecturer, selection grade in the Department of Microbiology, Malacca Manipal Medical College, Manipal University. And sir is going to talk about IP teamwork and communication. Over to you, sir.
Thank you all. A warm good morning to you all from my side. Now, before we go ahead with today's deliberation, I would like to share my screen. Just see if we can get my screen. Can I get a feedback if my screen is audible, visible?
So, screen visible and you're audible.
Voice is also audible.
Yes, yes.
All right. Once again, a warm good morning to you all. I am indeed extremely privileged and humbled to be a part of this workshop, that is IPECP. Before I start my deliberation today, session that's going to be on communication, I would like to take this opportunity to thank a few of the people. First of all, the Pro-Chancellor and the officials of the JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research, Dr. Bhagya, for giving me a platform to just share our thoughts, our ideas about the entire concept of IPE, IPP. And of course, it gives me immense pleasure to acknowledge the presence of my very, very, very close friend, Dr. Prashant, who was my FEMA fellow. And then we were very close. And then I welcome your presence. And then I hope we will interact in a much easier way. Thank you, Prashant.
Nice to see you, Anand.
Nice to see you. Thanks, Prashant.
Yeah.
And of course, the special interest group and all the delegates. And of course, my reflection panelist, Dr. Saju. I thank you all for being a part of this particular session. Now, when Bhagya gave an introductory note saying that we will learn and try to learn more about IPC, okay, I will try my level best to see what we can do, because more importantly, IPC is a skill that has to be basically practiced by each healthcare provider or health professional. So the session that we're going to discuss is about interprofessional. I'll just add one important component of teamwork, and also we'll talk about interprofessional communication. And I think it's a challenge for me to talk about communication, because ultimately I should be able to effectively communicate on this topic on interprofessional communication. So it's indeed a challenge, but let's see how the land goes. And then I'm sure that we would learn some important tenets on IPC, that is interprofessional communication. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Bhagya. All right. Now, a snapshot of how the land is going to lie ahead for the next 45 minutes to 15 minutes or so. All right. Now, I'll probably talk about some important aspects about the IPE team, because that's very, very important. That's pivotal in the IPE process as such. All right. So I'll just define an IPE team and also share some of the important characteristic features of an IPE team, because that is one of the important core competencies of IPE or IPP, IPC. Next, I would just throw some light on communication because it's very important that we know what is communication before we actually plunge into interprofessional communication. Because the parameters between the communication, normal communication, and what happens between health professions is the same. So we need to probably look into the nuances, the probable aspects about communication, like what is the process of communication, why does communication fail, what are the basics of communication, and since communication has a base as spoken language, we'll see what are the best that we can do out of spoken language. And finally, I would like to come back to interprofessional communication, share some slides or share some thoughts about. Yeah. So the effective IP team has got some important characteristics. Now, for effective IP team, we need to have good communication. That means ability to listen, speak, and you need to discuss amongst your group to share the common goals. And remember, it's always a two-way communication. So communication plays a very, very important role in an effective IP team. Next. Now, since it's a team, this team consists of many people. So we need to respect and understand the roles that each team member or a team player plays. Now we should know the limitations, and then we need to know where we can, what level we can stretch them, what are the boundaries, and more importantly, the role clarification plays a very, very important role, and that also is one of the important competencies of IPE or IPP. So understanding other people's role is very important. Now, since it's a team, there's going to be a mix of people with many abilities. So we should have an appropriate skill mix of all the skills, eventually looking at patient as the center, patient in the center. Their personalities, what attributes, what are their features, what they likes, what they dislikes, and more importantly, interprofession includes different professions. And towards a complementary goal, they should be able to work. So there should be an appropriate mix of the skill. Next. Ultimately, more focus should be on the outcome of patient care. They should focus on patient's outcomes, decrease medical difficulties, as well as make sure that the outcome becomes very, very effective. All right. And also the importance of leadership in such team build activity, or in an IP team, the leadership is very, very important. Leadership can be many forms, like transformative, transactional, collaborative leadership. More importantly, the leadership also does play a very, very important role to lead to the outcome. Next slide, please. Onus on the team processes, how it works, and what are the resources that they work with, what is the limited resources or sufficient physical resources that these people have, plays a very, very important role. And they should be able to know the processes in a particular team. Next. They should have a clear vision. Why have the team been formed? What is the role? What is the purpose? And they should be able to steer their vision to ultimately the patient care. So clear vision of all the members of the team is very, very important. And in case of any fallacies, in case of any deficiencies, they should be able to complement or augment their roles. Flexibility is a very, very important. You should know where to help each other, and also knowing your boundaries ultimately help each other. A mutual trust, a team culture is very, very important. You need to trust, you need to be reliable, you need to support each other, and more importantly, a camaraderie should be there, not competition, but a feeling of camaraderie. To know all these things, constant training is very, very, very important. You need to be a part of constant training process, which is very mandated. And more importantly, personal attributes play a very, very important role. You would have got all these things known, but how you're going to inculcate your approachability, how you're going to learn all of them, your personal attributes like your approachability, confidence, confidentiality, organizational skills. These are all very, very, very important as a part of IP team. Anand has already mentioned about effective IP team. This is just to augment the IP team, because I just wanted to start off with IP, the team, and then later proceed for communication and interprofessional communication. Next slide, please. So the competencies of IPE or the IPC plays a very important role or less in the effective conduct of the team. So the team is the brain, the heart of a IP competency or IPC or IPE. So remember, a team is very, very important because it functions together, and ultimately we are all in team-based activities with respect to patient care. Next slide, please. All right, now let's go to communication. Now I would like to stress on communication because simply talking is not communication. Talking with eloquent terms is not communication. So communication is simply the act of transferring information from one person to another person, from one place, from one group to another group. Now, is simply talking communication? Is eloquently with using high jargons or high words communication? No. Ultimately, there are three important facets of communication. Number one, the sender is very, very important. Who gives information? The receiver and the message. So these three components are very, 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 very important. And the fourth one that is also important is the feedback. Now, what we mean by feedback is whether the information has come from one individual, whether that particular sender has sent the proper information to the receiver, and whether the receiver has received that particular information is also very important. So the message is important, the sender is important, and also the receiver, and of course the feedback. Now, if there is any block in any of those four areas, if there's a block in the sender, if the message is not properly conveyed, if the receiver does not receive the particular message, or if it does not give a feedback, there is complete lack of communication. Now, when we work in silos, it's very easy because it's only a two-way communication. But then when you're working in a group, this communication is very important because we are involving more people, right? So we need to understand that mere message sending is not important. Appropriate communication is very important. The receiver should be able to understand what we are basically communicating. This is true with even the healthcare also. What we intend to say might not be what the receiver receives. So we should be effectively and very elegantly communicating effectively so that what is there in our mind gets to the receiver. Next, please. Yeah. Now, let's go one by one. Okay, right. Now, the expectation, what we expect is we have a thought comes in our mind that we communicate to our friend or to our healthcare professional. All right, he understands. So we expect that whatever comes in our mind is completely goes to the receiver's end. That's understanding. But in the reality, what happens? Thought comes, it is encoded, it is transmitted via media, it is received by a person, it is decoded, it is interpreted in his own norms, and the understanding that based on his understanding, he will basically decode it. Now look, what the thought that he had, that this person had, and what is the understanding that the other person had is the reality. This is our expectation, this is our reality. Why do you think it happens? How many of us have played dumb charades? All of us have played dumb charades, right? So more number of people, there is a more risk of this information or communication not being properly transferred. So remember, our expectations and the way that we do should be the reality. So we expect like this, but the reality is what happens. Now, why this happens? Next slide, please. There is a mismatch between the expectations and the reality for the very simple reason that there is lack of communication. Because of this lack of communication, that is the information transfer, there is a mismatch between the expectation and reality. Now, what is this communication? This information is nothing but the data. The data. Communication is also talking about the data that we want to transfer from one person to another person. And of course, next one. And of course, communication is also involving accurate transfer of information. So when you're talking about communication, we need to talk about what information is being transferred and whether accurate information is being transferred or accurate transfer of information is happening. It's just not the information that is important, but the accurate transfer of information is very, very, very important. And if this happens, I think the amount of mismatch that happens is basically negated. So when we are talking about communication, we need to talk about the data as well as the accurate transfer of information or data. If we can do that, then we can probably make sure that what we expect will be what we see in reality. Next slide, please. Just wait. Now, I want the group to basically think or introspect why communication fails. We can just share it in the chat box. We'll just take a couple of maybe 2 or 3 responses. Why does communication fail? You can even share it in the chat box, or you can even tell it out. Ineffective decoding, correct? Ego clashes. It's very interesting. Yes. I'm able to read some chats. Yeah. We fail to understand other people's point of view, correct? Environmental barriers, correct? If we cannot see a particular person, now I'm not able to see you, but so as a result, our communication might not be that effective. The environment barriers do play an important role as well, correct? Things that others can read between lines. Oh, that is you presume that people can read between lines. Some people are very effective, some people might not be effective. All right. Thank you for those particular points. Now, let's see if any of these points fall in the list that I have prepared. Can we have one by one, please? Why communication fails is because we use a lot of jargons. Okay, all some simplified or modified words, jargons, which is a very common thing that we all do, be it professional, be it health professionals, be it normal people as well. The maximum use of jargons can give rise to communication failure. Next, please. Emotional barriers or taboos. When we have any emotional barrier, when we have certain taboos, for example, some people do not do things on a specific day, or they do not want to see this particular person and then start. So emotional taboos, emotional barriers and taboos also can lead to a failure of communication. Next. Lack of attention. When somebody is saying you're not attentive, you're not interested, there's a lot of distractions. And if it is irrelevant to the receiver, automatically there's going to be communication failure. Next. I have my own perception. Why should I listen to him? My viewpoint is not taken care. So if there's a difference of perception and viewpoint, automatically the communication also fails. Next, please. Physical disabilities pertaining to hearing and speech. If we're not able to hear properly, if we're not able to talk properly, automatically communication fails. So we are all basically effective, good. We have proper physical abilities. Then as somebody said, physical barriers. Yes, physical barriers can be, okay, both for verbal as well as non-verbal. Language differences, the slang, okay. Now, what the Americans understand, British might not be able to understand. What British understands, what Americans do not say. And what Indians say, none of them understand. That's what they say, okay. And when we stereotype a particular person based on our prejudices, our expectations, we assume differently, but actually it can be mean. So let's not stereotype a particular person or information and not have false assumptions based on our expectations. Communicator is somebody, but if we have a prejudiced mind, if we have a false expectation of that particular individual, probably communication will basically fail. These are some of the important reasons why communication fails. Now, why am I getting to this particular point is, we need to make sure that we are the source of information. So we need to effectively communicate, and with our limited limitations, we should be able to understand that communication is a two-way process. Next slide, please. Now, communication is just like telling a story. You listen. Most of us will watch movies as well. You listen. We say, oh, that movie is really good. So we listen. Then we talk about it. Then we understand. We comprehend. Then we try to reflect and we respond and we check if everything is correct. And if all these things is sustenance basically take place. So effective communication is just like basically telling a story. So good communicators are effective communicators are people who are good storytellers, which we as a skill we have lost. We do not want to tell a story, and then we always remember our parents because they are very, very good storytellers. So communication is all about a good storytelling skill. Next, please. Now I'll just quickly go through the basics of communication before I go into the IPC. Now, as you're very well aware, there are basically two different types of communication: verbal and non-verbal. All right, verbal we have written, oral, and visual, and non-verbal also. Now, the research says, which do you think is caught very easily, verbal or non-verbal? We perceive or we believe that verbal communication is caught intently, but actually research says approximately 75 to 80% of our communication is non-verbal. Yes, most of our communication is non-verbal. So we need to be very careful as to make sure that our non-verbal communication becomes more effective. How we pause, how we our body language, how we address people. So our non-verbal does play an important role. That's why people always say, I don't imbibe what you talk, but I imbibe how you talk, or how you behave. Right? So non-verbal is very, very, very important. Now I'll just quickly, next slide, please. I'll quickly go through the spoken language. Here's a picture. Somebody says duck. Giraffe is looking where the duck is. But what the person meant is put down, because we're going through a tunnel. So spoken English has some important problems. Not all words are equal. A mere telling of the word might not transmit the information that you want to share. So mere words might be completely mistaken. Mere words might mean something for other people. In a context, in a different setup, it is different. So mere words is of not much significance. So when we are talking, when we are communicating, we need to at least use some words. Next, please. On a telephone call, somebody says, I need more money. When the receiver receives, it says, your face is funny. What I want to get to is the connectivity between the people is very, very, very important. How connected you are is very, very, very important. We need to check the frequency, connectivity, and the person's frame of mind. So effective communication rests on how effectively we are communicated with each other. And that's true with even the interprofessional communication, especially. How much are we committed in a particular team? What is the connectivity factor between each of the members? If there is any disconnect, automatically communication will falter. So we as a team should be able to make sure that we connect effectively. And effective communication requires effective connectivity. Next, please. Here, one person says, come over here. Other person says, how? The direction, instructions, and the path should be very, very important. You just can't say and then be in your own sphere and then say, come. You need to go out of your sphere and then show the process and tell him how to basically approach. You can't just say, do this procedure, put an IV. No, tell them how to do if possible. So showing the path also is very, very, very important. So effective communication, mere words not important. Connectivity is a must. Process, how exactly has to be done, should be basically be very clearly elucidated to the recipient or the receiver. Next, please. Next slide. Person says mouse. One person thinks about the computer mouse, other one talks about other mice. So what is important is the context of communication is very, very, very important. The words, sentences, connectivity, how, and the context is very, very, very important. If there's a mismatch between these three, automatically the verbal communication will falter. There are many problems with the spoken language. Your intonation, your frequency, there's a lot of, it's a multivariate analogy. So, but importantly, the words must be clear, process has to be clean, the direction, and of course, the context is one that matters very, very effectively. So context does play a very, very important role. Next. Till now, we've talked about spoken. Now let's talk about written. Written is always a challenge, especially for doctors. Written is always a challenge because we don't understand what we write, right? So even written communication is always a challenge because the doctor's handwriting or what we write might not be understandable for us also. So written, we need to be very careful, and also spoken also has to be basically taken care of as well. So it's a challenge. And next slide, please. Another area which we always talked about is the non-verbal. Our actions are caught. What the way we do is caught. So when we have to communicate in a team, both verbal and non-verbal communication is very, very important, because verbal can send a direct signal and non-verbal can send multifactorial symbols. So we need to make sure that our verbal communication and non-verbal becomes very, very effective. Next, please. Okay. Now that we have known about communication, what are the fallacies? What are the things that we need to tie ends with? Let's spend some time on IP communication. Now, communication in silo is little easier, but when we have in a team, communication becomes very, very, very important. Yes.
ಹೌದಾ ನೀವು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿ.
All right. Okay, IP communication is very, very important, especially when you're communicating in a group. When you're working in a group, the communication is very, 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 very important. Now, according to the competency level, according to the National Interprofessional Competency Framework of CHC, they say interprofessional communication corresponds to learners or practitioners from different professions communicating with each other. That means learn with, from, and about, or communicating with, from, and about. All right. Now, when this communication occurs, we need to communicate with each other in a next collaborative, next responsive, and responsible manner. This is what is defined by the CIHC. So IP communication revolves around effective communication to collaborate, to be more responsive, and also to be more responsible. That means it calls for collective competence. Together, we will try to be competent. Next, it does not mean collective incompetence. So if we do not effectively communicate as a team, if IPC does not happen, it becomes collective incompetence. So we should be moving from collective incompetence to collective competence. That's the very, very important feature, or one important aspect of collective competence. And then IPC, interprofessional communication, is one key component of interprofessional education, or IPE, IPP, and interprofessional collaboration in practice as well. So let's know that communication plays a very, very, very important role. And this is the competency statement. Next, please. All right. Now, when you're talking in terms of interprofessional communication, the health professions communicate with whom? With patients and their families, and with the community. They communicate with the patients, with each other, and with the community. Now, this communication must be a very, very collaborative, transparent, and in a responsible way. Now, why transparent is there should not be anything between the lines. Collaborative, together, work together for a better patient care. And each component of a health profession should be communicating in a very, very responsible way, because together they're all working together. So we need to communicate, collaborate in a responsible way. Now, so what of this communication? What happens because of effective communication, IP communication? The first thing that happens is, since we are working in a team, there's going to be some amount of trust. It builds trust amongst the various healthcare professions. Now, out of trust comes respectful relationship between the patients, families, and healthcare providers. Because the more important thing is the patient is in the center and the patient party is also in the center. So we need to effectively communicate to ensure that they are satisfied. And whatever we do should be ultimately satisfying them. And this will help in mutual respect that fosters a positive environment to make sure that the patient's outcomes are basically delegated. Okay, so mutual respect leads to shared set of goals. Next, creative collaborative plans, make decisions favorable for the patient or the patient outcomes, and of course it helps us to share responsibilities. So lack of respects leads to all the negative things, but positive communication, effective IP communication, the context, the way forward, the complete transfer of information or data from the sender to the receiver or to the group will enable for setting up shared goals, create collaborative plans, make fantastic decisions that is beneficial for the patient's outcome. And of course, there's going to be shared responsibility. It's not going to be a unitarian decision. It's going to be a shared responsibility, ultimately focusing on the patient's care. Next slide, please. Now, what I want you to take a couple of minutes and then reflect is, what do you think are the barriers in interprofessional communication? Now, we as clinicians, or we as doctors, we are healthcare professionals, we need to ensure that we communicate effectively. We try, but there are certain barriers. Now, I want the group to probably take maybe a couple of minutes and list at least 2 or 3 important barriers that they find for interprofessional. What are the barriers in interprofessional communication? Okay, so please list down, because I have a big list of barriers which we have listed. Okay, and then I want any one of you to share one of them. So list maybe 2 or 3, and you can probably share one of it. So maybe you can spend a couple of minutes and then reflect and share what are the various barriers. One person says ego. You can probably list, okay? You can just keep a list, maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 5 points, and then you can just share one. Language barrier, competency in professional aspect, correct? Traditional hierarchy, personal biases. Yeah, good points. Very, very nice key points. Language, lack of confidence. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. True. Do not believe in the outcomes of IPC. If there is no, if we don't believe, so probably we need to educate them. Probably we need to tell them that IPC works with all the positive models. Probably it will generally help us. All right. Now, I would like to see if any of those particular figure in the list that we have. Okay, next slide, please. Now, are there barriers at two levels? What do you think are the level barriers at two levels in this particular picture? Or in a clinical practice, what do you think are the barriers in IP communication? Okay, preoccupied concept. Okay. What do you think are where are the barriers, probable barriers? Oh, you don't see any barrier. If no barrier, I'll be it's very, very effective. It's very good. But if there are barriers, then we need to really think, we need to rethink about the whole process. Are there barriers between? Next slide, please. Yeah. Next. So there is barrier. Go previous slide, please. Go to the previous slide. Previous slide. Previous. Yeah. There are barriers at the doctor-patient interaction, and as well as there is a barrier between the doctor and the team that will basically that we communicate to. So let's list some of the barriers with these two sets of groups, because our effective understanding of IP communication rests on understanding, identifying them, and of course working against them. All right. So next slide, please. Okay. Now between the doctor patient and the patient party, these are some of the important barriers. Next. All right. Now these barriers are very, very important for us to understand, because they play a very, very important role in not effectively communicating. The personal values and expectations, what are our principles, what are our values, what we expect from the patient is also very important. The personality differences that exist between them, between us, is a very important barrier. Next, hierarchy. Some of you brought it up here. Hierarchy. They always think that doctors always God, next comes we. So that hierarchical issue is always there. Culture and ethnicity. We are all high-fi. They are all low-fi. No. The ethnicity, which background that we come. Differences in language. As a result, language learning is very, very mandatory if you have to be very, very effective. Use of jargons. The moment we use jargons to patients, they will not understand. Thereby, we feel that we are all at an elevated level and they are at a submissive level. Limited use of jargons are very, very important. Our qualification and status is one of the important barriers. Suppose if we are very free to them, whether we share all our things, are we diluting our profession? The fear of our identity, professional identity, is one of the important barriers. And we should, and then if we keep telling about what all things is happening, they might get scared. So the complexity of the care also is one of the important barrier. Next, please. Rapid decision making. And when we communicate, we use abbreviations. Okay, like Potts disease, Koch's disease, Hansen's disease. So that might be one of the important barriers. Now, why I have listed this is, we know that we are working with these barriers, but are we trying to eliminate them? So for effective communication, we need to identify them and then make sure that we work against, or we try to modify. Now, all these things can be modified or can be negated, can be modified. So if we can look into these things, introspect, and then try to work against this, then probably the barrier between the doctor-patient can be basically removed and we can work together. Next slide, please. And what are the barriers between health professionals? This is more dangerous. DP is okay, doctor-patient is fine, but this is more dangerous. Next slide. Next. Now, what are they? Now, please note there are commonalities between the doctor-patient and the doctor, and then interprofessional health professions. Personal values and expectations, very, very important. When you're working in amongst other professionals, you want to show that you are the boss. Does not work. Personality differences, okay, between a team, between a group of health professionals, is always one of the important barriers. Next. Hierarchy. My profession, is important. I don't bother about other profession. So the hierarchy, I already said, ego, hierarchical egos does not work in a team. When you're working in a team, everybody are equal. There's nothing like I am more, you're more. No, hierarchy plays a very important. And then the first response that I got from the group was ego. Shut off our ego, because ultimately it's not that ego that matters. It's the basically the ego to make sure that the patient's outcomes are important. That is important. So let's leave our hierarchical differences. So one of the important barriers is hierarchy, superiority of profession. This medicine, surgery, OBC, which discipline? Don't worry about that. Ultimately, hierarchical differences have to be basically done. Limited understanding of others' professions, scope of practice. We are in our own sphere. We are not aware of what exactly. So we need to learn about other people's profession as well. So if we have that much amount of respect, that much amount of care, we will be able to be effective. Okay, limited understanding of other profession scope. Okay, other professions groups, poor understanding of our scope. It's not only our understanding of others also should be able to understand our scope of our profession. So by this, the collaboration plays an important role. That's why we always say IP is about learning with, from, and about. We need to learn with, we need to learn from, and about each other. We have to make this effort. We need to learn. So if we can understand, if we can eliminate this barrier, then effective IP communication can basically happen. And then we are all kings. We build our own territories. Our boundaries are set. We have a territoriality. Okay, differences in schedules and professional routines is one of the important barrier. Okay, our qualification, our status. I'm a professor. He's a AP or an associate. Professional levels do play an important role. Differences in professional education. Next, again, fears of diluted professional identity, clinical responsibility, complexity of care, emphasis on rapid decision making, and interprofessional relationship. Okay, now some of these components, some of these barriers are common for both DP as well as health professions barriers. So for effective interprofessional communication, we need to understand our barriers, because we are dealing with different professions. Many professions are coming together. And if we were to really make sure that we have a common goal to accomplish, we need to leave those barriers. We need to augment, we need to supplement those barriers and move ahead and make sure that we communicate. Communicate with thought, action, non-verbal, and of course, keeping context and keeping the process also intact. Now, how does IPC effectively happen? We've learned about the barriers. Now, how does IPC happen? The first thing is we need to negate these barriers, circumvent those barriers. Okay, if we know that hierarchy is one of the important barriers, try to rectify it, try to remove it. If you know that the team is not functioning properly, what is it? Try to identify. The more important things, why I listed the barriers, is we need to negate and we need to improve, and then we need to move on. And we need to get into the concept of team. Now it is all about team-based care. Gone are those days when we used to work in silos. No, we are working in team. We need to clarify the roles. Who does what? Since we are in a team, we need to know who does what. That's very, very important. And for that also, we need effective communication. We need to respect each other. Very, very importantly, which we fail drastically, or very much active listening. We don't listen to people. We just want to put out our point. Okay, and also focus on non-verbal communication. Always have a shared understanding, keeping this in view. And a group decision should take place to see if negotiation is important, consultation is important, debate or discussion is more effective. Most of the time, it's always consultation and interaction which plays an important role. And of course, we need to effectively use the information and communication technology very, very effectively. So the nail that has to be hit is basically on two important aspects. Number one, we need to negate the barriers, and make sure that we communicate effectively to the team. And we need to understand that team works together. Each of us can achieve more. So the team component, and once we know that we are in a team, we start to appreciate each other. We will have automatically mutual respect. And once the other people understands our points, automatically communication can be very, very effective. Next, please. Okay, now this is again a very important aspect. Now, when we talk about communication, effective IP communication, communication can occur at all these 4 areas. These are the more important components of any IPE. In that, communication plays an important role. We need to create an IP team. Okay, now once we have created an IP team, we need to communicate with the created IP team, or within the created IP team, there should be good communication. Leaving back the egos, leaving back their jargon philosophies, leaving back their hierarchical settings, communicate to within the group that is created. Next, we need to communicate. What I meant was, next thing is we need to communicate to clarify the roles. Role clarification is a very, very important component of communication as well. We need to know who should do what. If we don't know who does what, then automatically the whole building is going to collapse. So communication to clarify the roles plays a very, very important role. Communication in a team is important. Communicate to clarify the roles in a team is important. Consultation and communication within the group is mandatory. It is highly mandated and warranted. So communicate, consult, communicate. That happens, what should happen within the group. And of course, we need to, for effective collaboration, communication is one of the important pivotal roles. So communication leads to collaboration. So if we create, we need to communicate to the created team. We need to communicate to clarify the roles. We need to communicate to consult, and also we need to communicate to collaborate as well. So if we can do this, automatically the collaborative patient care can be very, very effective, and probably we can go supernal. Next, please. Now, we've talked about what are the barriers, where are the possible areas to communicate, and what are the advantages of effective IPC, of effective IP communication. Number one, it promotes collaboration. Since we are talking in terms of teams, we are working on team-based things, so it will help us for collaboration. It empowers the team members. It closes communication gaps. Most of the times, non-effective communication is because of communication gaps. I thought he would do. I thought it's his job. No. It closes communication gaps. It enables comprehensive patient care. More importantly, the very important thing is it promotes patient-centered care, which is the very important thing that is happening. It improves self as well as staff relationship and job satisfaction, and of course it reduces inefficiencies. And then the research says 80% of medical errors can be negated if we have effective communication, interprofessional communication. That means the negligence in medical errors can be basically reduced to more than 80% if we effectively communicate. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the scenario, past and present, past and at the present. Next. In the past, a patient used to be there, he used to go to different health professions. Okay? As Gagan was mentioning, it is a multidisciplinary approach. Okay, so the patient goes like a football from one place to another place, and eventually he gets better and then he moves on. This was the scenario of past and the present one. Next. The future. How is the future going to be? Hopefully, the future is that the health professions target the patients. So I always like our mentor John's comment. He says, "Where is the patient? The patient should be always in the center of whatever deliberations that we do." So the patient in the center, health professions move to them, take care of the patient. Next, and also communicate with each other. So if we understand this, the only remedy for enhanced patient outcome, only remedy for enhanced collaborative practice, only remedy for enhanced outcome, patient outcome and care. The only remedy is effective interprofessional communication. Working in silos had a lot of difficulties. Working in silos had led to communication lapses. But when you're working in teams, we need to understand that the IPC has very important. Okay, it is very much mandated, and ultimately, effective interprofessional communication can bring smiles to the patients as well as the patient party because it improves the patient care. So just to conclude by saying that communication, both verbal, non-verbal, contextual, and communication in team will really benefit the patient and make the patient get away from the hospital with loads of smiles and carrying you, giving you more respect that you are intended for. So with that, I thank you all for your patient hearing, even though there was some technical glitch. Okay, I'm ready to take some questions. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge some important people. All right. First things, I would like to acknowledge Professor John Gilbert, our mentor of our center, as well as a lot of things that I learned from him. All right. The ideas, the thoughts were all his. We have learned from him. So I thank you, Dr. John. Of course, I thank my colleague Abhishek Chaturvedi, faculty of MMMC, because a few of the slides were generated by him. And of course, Elsa and other people who made this particular presentation possible. Above all, I thank you all for your patient hearing. I'm ready to take any questions if time is there.
Thank you, sir, for a great session. It was very informative. I request the participants, if any questions, please put it in the chat section. Anand, sir?
Yes.
I have a question,
Yes,
probably your suggestion. If we have to start IPE in our college or in our university, so, we need authorities' permission, and, the admins are always so busy. How do we communicate this to our admin? What is your tip and suggestion?
Yeah, probably the success stories of IPC can be, the collaborative care can be one of the important triggers to show, because most of them believe they don't believe our talking. But if you have shown them that it works, and if you can talk to them effectively, regularly, probably it might work. So success stories and also interacting with them on a regular basis would be basically very useful to ensure that we have this particular concept. And also probably we can you're already having a plan of setting up an IP or a clinic, right? So that would really be, and probably involve them in that. Maybe you can do that effectively. Probably there's a lot of the experience that I can tell, a little bit that I know about.
Thank you, sir. As there are no questions, we shall now proceed to our reflection panelist. I invite Dr. Saju Binu Cherian. She is an associate professor of anatomy from Apollo Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Hyderabad, from KNR University of Health Sciences, Telangana. Dr. Saju's project is about a randomized controlled trial to determine the effect of biofortified pearl millet on improvement of iron status in preschool children residing in urban slums of Hyderabad. Dr. Saju's IP project has been awarded as the best project at several conferences. Her IP project is a clear example of how we can get into the community settings to bring a change. So participants, all of you who would want to have your IP projects to create a change at the community level, Dr. Saju is the person you have to look for. Over to you, Saju.
So we were just going through the characteristics of IP team, effective IP team, followed by which we started with the basics of communication, we saw what are the components of communication, where there is a sender, there is a receiver, and between that is the message which is encoded. The message becomes decoded and then it is received by the receiver. So sometimes there can be a mismatch in this. We saw why communication fails. There were certain points which were raised by the audience, uh, 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 like jargons, emotional barriers, lack of attention, etc. So, very clearly and simplified manner, he explained to us communication as a story. You listen, you talk, understand, reflect, respond, check, and then sustain. Followed by which we looked at the types of communication. We divided it into verbal and non-verbal. Verbal was further divided into written, oral, and visual. We saw spoken language can have problems. So, two things which we should very clearly remember is every word which is used must have a specific purpose, and also it should have the connectivity between the sender and the receiver, and also the context is very important. Also, there should be a good balance between the verbal and non-verbal communication, which should signal the same thought. Then Sir took us to IP communication, where he explained to us the definition of IP communication by CIHC, where collaborative, responsive, and responsible manner, where the practitioners and the client comes together, which brings about and optimizes the healthcare. So what is important and what it promotes is the climate of trust, respectful relationship, and also the mutual respect. We looked at what are the barriers of interprofessional communication between the doctor and the patient and also among the health professions. We saw various barriers and few of them were common between doctor-patient and also among the health professions. We clearly saw that these barriers should be negated in order to have an effective interprofessional communication. So communicate effectively to the team, which brings about mutual respect and also understanding. So later we saw within the created team, there should be communication and also consultation, which can later on move to collaboration. We saw the advantages of communication, interprofessional communication, which can promote collaboration, empowers team members, closes the communication gap, reduces the gap between academia and practice. So these are my reflections, and I would like to say to add on interprofessional communication as one of the competencies of interprofessional education must begin in academic settings, and it should be reinforced and remodeled throughout the curriculum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Saju. That was a great summary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we proceed to the next session, we have Dr. Animesh Jain, sir, who he would like to share some important information. So you can share your screen, Animesh, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bhagyalakshmi. No, I just put the chat in the link in the chat already.
Okay, sir.
I just told you that I will share that. So I've just shared that link. Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah, I will request the participants to please check the link once we are done with the sessions. Right. So let's proceed to the next session. Since IPECP is all about interprofessional, there is going to be an overlap between the professionals, which might give rise to conflicts. Ethical concerns may come in. So let's hear about that. We have our next speaker, Dr. Ram Prasad VP. He's a professor and head from the Department of Public Health Dentistry from Manipal Academy of Higher Education and Research. And sir is going to speak about ethics and conflict resolution with IPECP. Over to you, Ram Prasad, sir.
Are you able to see the slides now?
So yes, sir.
Is it coming in clear?
Yes,
Right.
so you have to go to slide share, sir. Perfect, yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhagia, for the opportunity. And warm greetings to all of you from Manipal College of Dental Sciences. Very happy to be a part of this two-day deliberation on interprofessional education, collaboration, as well as the emphasis and the lead given for this particular topic, and the proactive support that's been generated at JSS over the past years. And once again, fresh insights into the topic of interprofessional ethics, interprofessional values, and conflict management. I'm sure there are professionals from other disciplines also a part of this particular initiative. And I think it's all the more imperative for us to take these insights into deliberate, slow, and well-considered directional motives, because I think if it's taken slowly, the chances of it sustaining is very high. So that's the reason I would like to emphasize it, for it to be taken slowly and for it to be understood well. And only then, when these two aspects are well addressed, and only then will it actually bear fruit, and will be translating to better initiatives and eventually to better health outcomes for both the individual and the community. As Dr. Bhagia was rightly pointing out, conflict management becomes a big issue because there are so many reasons for conflicts. It could be personal, it could be intra-departmental, it could be interdepartmental, it could be professional rivalry, it could be association related, it could be related to so many aspects. In the sense, each person's perspectives is different, what they are looking at is different, and so to address all these components and to bring it to the table and to provide that particular benefit to the patient with effective interactive collaboration, I think that's a major challenge. And that's one of the reasons we see conflicts, and we do have to be prepared to handle these types of conflicts. And if there's a team, if there's a protocol in place, if there's a management strategy in place, I think it will go a long way in actually sorting out initial issues. A team of experts does not make an expert team. This is one slide, one of my favorite slides. This could happen in relation to so many contexts, not just implementation of projects, but it could be related to values as well. Though the picture here is talking about the railway track, it could be mental conditioning, it could be mental orientation, it could be psychological issues, it could be infrastructural issues, it could be management strategies, management styles, it could be a whole lot of issues. So until and unless this particular concept is kept in mind as to whether we are actually on track to join tracks, to join hands, I think there will be conflicts, and we have to make sure that right before the start itself, expect to have a conflict. If you're not expecting to have a conflict, I think that's improper planning. So please expect to have conflicts, and please have a strategy to address those possible conflicts and potential conflicts so that the team is better prepared to face challenges before thinking of implementation. Interprofessional education, why are we looking at it? Why are we looking at it from this particular point of view? Interprofessional education is an opportunity to not only change the way that we think about educating future health workers, but is an opportunity to step back and reconsider the traditional means of healthcare delivery. I think that what we're talking about is not just a change in educational practices, but a change in the culture of medicine and healthcare. So we need to look at it carefully. We need to organize our thoughts, principles, intentions, values. We need to really address it carefully so that we are not in conflict of possible, potential, or developing issues, developing areas and developing issues. So it's not just a change in educational practice, but a change in the culture of medicine and healthcare itself. Now, when we go back to the principles of ethics, we have standard, well-established principles. We have principles of beneficence. Beneficence is do good. Then we have non-maleficence, that is do no harm. We have the well-quoted primum non nocere. So at first, do no harm. So these are some of the issues on which the other principles have been built. You have veracity, you have justice. Veracity is truthfulness. Justice, whether there is a balance between the good and the bad, between the good and the possibly bad. So there are a lot of issues which come in when we're talking of principles of ethics, and these are usually followed and these are looked up whenever there's a conflict, whenever there is a change of direction, whenever there's a change of leadership, whenever we are facing challenging times, we are having difficult times, we do come across changes, we do come across challenges, and these are the principles which are looked up, are looked at to see whether the direction of flow of developments is going right or wrong. The WHO and its partners recognize interprofessional collaboration in education and practice as an innovative strategy that will play an important role in mitigating the global health workforce crisis. It's definitely an initiative which is gathering momentum, which has gathered momentum in many parts of the world. Many academic institutions, universities have taken interprofessional education and collaboration very actively. And even in India, we see that this decade, the last decade, 2010 to 2020, we have seen a lot of development in this particular field with offshoots, developments, and seeds of thought sown everywhere so that it actually bears fruit. Interprofessional education occurs when students from two or more professions learn about, from, and with each other to enable effective collaboration and improve health outcomes. When we actually look at this particular concept, look at how actually it's working, we indirectly sense the aspects of ethics. We have ethical values, we have ethical dilemmas, ethical conflicts, which definitely comes into the picture straight away whenever you are having interdisciplinary exchanges of academic matter, collaboration, content, projects, etc. So whenever we are having many people who are basically from different backgrounds coming together, there can be conflicts of thought. There can be a very serious conflict of thought. There can be dilemmas. There can be a bias in the judgment. There can be changes in investment policies. It's a professional integrity at stake. Whether you want to join hands for better outcomes for the target population, that is the patient group, or you do not want to join hands and you want to keep it within your own specialty, within your own profession, that's a debatable issue. Even within a particular profession or association, you can have different schools of thought, leaders in different schools of thought who are pro and who are anti, who are for and against. So it's at times difficult to take a decision straight away, but when it is nurtured, when it is developed, when there is a sense of belongingness and when the sense of oneness developing, I think it will definitely lead to better outcomes. Interprofessional education is a necessary step in preparing a collaborative, practice-ready health workforce that is better prepared to respond to local health needs. Collaborative, practice-ready means all the conflicts within have been addressed. There is no conflict within the group or very minimal conflict. or even if there's a conflict, there is a strategy in place to address it wholesome, to address it comprehensively. So we are planning for a potential conflict and also coming up with potential solutions to address that conflict. Firefighting strategies. If there is a fire, definitely we are ready for it. If there is a firefighting force which has been prepared for it. Otherwise, the fire can actually take a very heavy toll. In the sense, a lot of loss of property and lives can happen. In the same sense, when you convert it into delivery of interprofessional values and interprofessional commitments, until and unless this conflict management strategy is addressed, there can be greater loss for the whole interprofessional community itself. Until and unless there is a strategy in place to manage these interprofessional ethics, values, and conflict areas, it can create problems if you are not actually prepared. A collaborative practice ready health worker is someone who has learned how to work in an interprofessional team and is competent to do so. To actually work well in this area, we need to see what are the boundaries, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what are the strong points, what are the weak points, what are the areas in which we need to collaborate more to strengthen our own direction, to strengthen our own commitment and mutually. What are our weaknesses? What are our strengths? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Where can we help them and where can we receive help? So this particular understanding has to be clear without conflict of thought, values, or commitments. In relation to time, manpower, energy, and all aspects, we need to see what is it that is feasible for us and whether we can actually achieve it ethically. Collaborative practice happens when multiple health workers from different professional backgrounds work together with patients, families, carers, and communities to deliver the highest quality of care. It allows health workers to engage any individual. Skills can help achieve local health goals. So this particular practice is seen very successfully, is seen to be the best method of providing a particular service or implementing a particular project when multiple health workers from different backgrounds together with patients, families, carers, and communities to deliver the highest quality of care. So it indirectly says the background issues have already been addressed, or there is a forum, there is a platform to actually address this particular conflict when it arises, or if there's a potential for there to be a conflict. The WHO and its partners acknowledge that there's sufficient evidence to indicate that effective interprofessional education enables effective collaborative practice. So in the formative stages of interprofessional education itself, there has to be a section, there has to be an area where conflict management, ethical issues, and principles are included in the training. If there is a major issue, a full-blown issue developing, who is accountable? Who is not accountable? What are the legal repercussions? What are the implications? What are the future implications? So these are the issues which have to be addressed when there's a lot of investment happening financially, time-wise, or manpower-wise for making it a very big project. Whenever there is a project, there are background issues related to it. It could be investments, relation to finance, manpower, energy, new structures coming up, new team formation, team building, HR, human resources, and so on. So when these issues are being addressed, we need to consider the whole picture. We need to see the broader picture, the macro picture, and not fine tune and get stressed by the micro picture. So don't look at things, the small pictures, and say that there's a lot of conflict building. Yes, conflicts will be there. A few conflicts can be there. But when you look at the broader picture, when you look at the bigger picture, a bird's eye view, as they say, I think it makes a lot of difference. And it's when you see the bird's eye view, when you see the bigger picture, then you realize why it is essential for us not to concentrate just on the micro picture, not just don't look just at the small picture. And it's very important for us to see what are the benefits, what are the outcomes, how are the quality improvement issues that are going to take place when the broader picture, when the big picture is actually implemented smoothly. So with the broader picture in mind, it is very, very essential for us to let go, I repeat, let go of the smaller issues, the smaller, irritating, minor issues, which can be tackled if you're on the right track personally and professionally. If you address it with due respect, with due concern, with the due attitude of care and concern for the other professional, I'm sure it can be done in a very friendly, in a very congenial, in a very healthy manner. Collaborative practice strengthens health systems and improves health outcomes. Definitely, it's been proven time and again. Integrated health and education policies can promote effective interprofessional education and collaborative practice. A range of mechanisms shape effective interprofessional education and collaborative practice, such as supportive management practices, identifying and supporting champions, the resolve to change the culture and attitudes of health workers, a willingness to update, renew, and revise existing curricula, appropriate legislation that eliminates barriers to collaborative practice. I think there are ethical issues in each of these. Supportive management practices, the challenges, ethical issues, financial implications, and the perseverance required to implement those strategies. Identifying and supporting champions. You have to identify and see who are the leaders, who are the initial leaders who are actually taking it on their back, bearing the brunt of the whole project, and they have to be supported, they have to be nurtured without harming their development and without harming the potential chances of a successful implementation. The resolve to change the culture and attitudes of health workers, a willingness to update, renew, and revise the existing curricula, appropriate legislation that eliminates barriers to collaborative practice. Mechanisms that shape interprofessional education and collaborative practice are not the same in all health systems. Health policy makers should utilize the mechanisms that are most applicable and appropriate to their own local or regional context. It's very essential for all institutions to have a local method, an inner understanding of what works locally, what is available globally, but what works locally. So modifications may have to be done, innovations have to be done, new content may have to be delivered, a new structure may have to be created to bring a better understanding to the local people, to the local management issues, to the local departmental staff. So there are various issues that have to be addressed. Health leaders who choose to contextualize, commit, and champion interprofessional education and collaborative practice position their health system to facilitate achievement of the health-related Millennium Development Goals. These are very, very vital. These issues, implementation of the Millennium Development Goals must be a priority in all healthcare institutions across the world. And whenever possible, wherever possible, these have to be looked at periodically to see what is the success that has been achieved. Where do we stand? And when it's measured periodically, incrementally, I'm sure there will be a better tracking and better implementation. The framework for action on interprofessional education and collaborative practice provides policymakers with ideas on how to implement interprofessional education and collaborative practice within their current context. This particular illustration is symbolically summarizing the actions. We have the local health needs. The health system may be fragmented, not able to deliver as intended. Present and future health workforce available. Now there's a concept of IP education coming in, and then the health workforce that's available is fine-tuned. They're made more collaborative practice ready. Then you have a collaborative practice workforce. Then you have a strengthened health system, optimal health services, and then it's finally leading to improved health outcomes. So this is the track on which we are moving. So to this track, we need to add the interprofessional ethics, values, and principles that are concerned. So implementation and moving from one stage, one phase to another phase, there can be a breakdown between the local health needs to the development of interprofessional education. The fragmented health system, that is one area where you will have a lot of conflict, you will have a lot of issues, you will have a blame game coming in, who is responsible for what, and whether a particular specialty or department or profession is ready to take on an additional load in the existing manpower, infrastructure, energy availability. So this is a particular area which has to be addressed. And once that particular area is addressed by taking care of the required issues and sorting out things amicably, then we will have a health workforce, preparation of the health workforce. Again, there are some more issues there which are potentially in conflict. Once that's addressed, then you will have a collaborative, practice-ready workforce, which results in a strengthened health system and finally to improve health outcomes. So whenever you're having a new project, a new interprofessional educational or collaborative project, it goes through various stages. It goes through various thought processes before it is actually implemented successfully. It takes time for an analysis, for an assessment of whether a system is going to actually translate to optimal working conditions and successful, whether it's going to be implemented successfully. There will be challenges locally, there will be challenges individually, there will be challenges personally in relation to time management, but if the commitment is strong and if there is perseverance, though it may be slow, it will actually translate to better outcomes, and there will be an appreciation coming in that's due coming your way over a period of time. That's guaranteed. That's definitely a proven strategy, but it will take time for its implementation, and we need to be strong. And that's exactly why I repeat, we need to re-emphasize the values, as a proper address of the conflict issues, and we need to actually create a sense of we need to create a vision. We need to create a vision. We need to create a feel of what is not available today that will be available tomorrow if we are addressing these local irritating issues. So those are some of the highlights and points that I wanted to emphasize in this particular illustration, where the local health needs with a fragmented health system and then translating to a strengthened health system with an improved health outcome. I think the core of this still needs to be proper address of conflicts and IP values. At a time when the world is facing a shortage of health workers, policymakers are looking for innovative strategies that can help them develop policy and programs to bolster the global health workforce. Particularly so in this era of COVID, the COVID pandemic, we have had a lot of decisions by different professionals who are all indirectly related to the management of a disease or improving health outcomes for its citizens. We have had ministers, we have had academicians, we have had doctors, we have had policymakers, we have had politicians, we have had a lot of people seeing what is it that they can contribute. But whether it's all leading to a quality health outcome change, that needs to be decided, and that takes time for a proper evaluation. A proper evaluation can happen usually retrospectively, but when well planned, it can be prospective in the sense we can see what are the changes that will happen, and those changes are happening because of what reasons, and what is it that is actually facilitating that change. I think those issues have to be given priority. The framework for action on IPE and collaborative practice highlights the current status of IP collaboration around the world, identifies the mechanisms that shape successful collaborative teamwork, and outlines a series of action items that policymakers can apply within their local health systems. The goal of the framework is to provide strategies and ideas that will help health policy makers implement the elements of interprofessional education and collaborative practice that will be most beneficial in their own jurisdiction. IPE basically supports a quadruple aim in healthcare practice. It is looking at better outcomes, improved clinician experience, improved patient experience, and lower costs. So these four are extremely important. We have had a look at better outcomes for the patient, for the professional, for the existing system, improved clinician experience and higher levels of satisfaction of doing good, of providing better care, of providing optimum care for their patients, improved patient experience from the patient's perspective. Patients feel better, they feel nurtured, they feel privileged, they feel respected, they feel supported. So these are some issues from the patient perspective. And the management, the financial aspects, the cost management, the cost benefit analysis, the lower costs, better services, better satisfaction. We are looking at all these four. So IPE supports the quadruple aim in healthcare practice, and these are some guidelines on how to go about it. Improved patient outcomes can happen. Interprofessional education and collaboration found improvement in care processes, patient outcomes, teamwork behaviors, and skills. So we have seen that patient outcomes are definitely improved when there is better collaboration, provided conflicts are kept to a minimum, whether it's related to manpower or investments or time management, conflict management. There has to be a team, there has to be a small committee which is looking at it and seeing how to solve these problems and how to address these challenges. Increased patient satisfaction shown to increase patient reported quality of care. Kaiser is one of the leaders, and they've had a detailed analysis of how interprofessional education and collaboration has resulted in increased patient satisfaction. Decreased cost shown to reduce utilization and decrease cost in high need, high frequency patients. Increased provider satisfaction, acknowledge the role of workforce importance in restoring joy and meaning to practice. So the nurturing, the nourishment that happens results in better satisfaction for the healthcare providers, and that is a boost. That is a boost to their working, and they feel better and they perform better, and the patient gets the benefit. So this is the particular quadruple aim. But again, I am looking at the conflict management and ethical issues in each of this. Whenever you're having patient outcomes, increased patient satisfaction, decreased cost, and increased provider satisfaction, if these are all going in the right direction, it means to say that there is very less conflict, very little conflict, no scope for those particular management styles or committees to come in and put in their perspectives. But if there is a conflict, then there's a higher need for those particular committees or individuals to express and see how is it that we can actually solve problems and reduce conflict. I think I would like to come back to two case scenarios. There are multiple standard case scenarios in relation to interprofessional ethics and values. And I've highlighted two particular case scenarios here, which gives a feel of what are the issues and what are the areas and what are the thought processes that may come in when you're having interprofessional issues, and when you have multidisciplinary teams that actually are contributing to the outcomes of a patient, of a particular patient. A case study one, the parents of a periodontic patient, the parents of a child who was in need of periodontic care, that is primary teeth and primary dental care of pediatric patients. They refuse blood transfusion for the child who needs it. There has been an accident. The child has fractured his primary teeth, and the the dentoalveolar component is also significantly damaged, and you've seen cases where you have pediatric fractures of the anterior part of the face. So you have different types of fractures. You have Lefort 1, 2, and 3. Some of them are very, very serious because the cranial component is getting affected, and then because of the box, a matchbox-like structure of the dentoalveolar component and the nose, there is a tendency for that particular structure, the anterior one-third, to just crumble. It just goes inside. And then you can have very severe maxillofacial and craniofacial injuries, even from a very simple looking accident. Even if it's related to a cycle and the child falling on the cycle bar, on the handle, there can be very serious impact. It can be a very serious impact. So we have had one particular case that is mentioned. The parents of the child who actually met with an accident, the child needs blood transfusion, but they belong to a particular sect that's called actually the Jehovah's Witness. The Jehovah's Witness, they don't believe in accepting other individuals' blood. So they don't believe in the concept of blood transfusion at all. So they say that their religious beliefs that since they belong to the Jehovah's Witness, they cannot accept blood transfusion. The periodontist in charge, the anesthetist in charge, the oral surgeon in charge, and the hospital staff are recommending blood transfusion because there has been a massive loss of blood and the child is feeling weak. The child is looking weak and the child definitely needs blood. So in such a case, just imagine this particular case happening in your own hospitals. One particular evening, the child and the parents walk in and you have less staff because the staff have finished their work for the day and they have left. And if it's a Friday evening or it's a weekend approaching, very less staff, and then you have this particular issue developing. Just imagine the stress, just see the conflict of thought that's coming in through your mind. You have manpower issues. Second, you have religious issues. They have decided not to go for blood transfusion because they belong to Jehovah's Witness. They're looking for altered. They want something else. They want an altered, some alternative to this particular direction. They do not want to accept blood transfusion at any cost. So they're trying to say that please look at it in any other way. And from the medical professionals, from the health professionals, the advice is to go for blood transfusion because the child is already, it looks like the child is losing it. The child may not make it. So there is an urgent issue developing, there's an emergency developing, and the parents are in conflict. So what would you advise? I mean, the final decision is do you want to leave it to the parents? If you're going to leave it to the parents, the child may not survive. So there's a conflict developing within each one of us. So what would you like to do in this particular case? In this particular case scenario, what would you advise? So this is one particular area which needs a lot of thought, a lot of debate. Finally, would you leave it on the parent? Would you leave it on the parent saying that they are not accepting blood transfusion and so the child's life is at risk? But if you do it, okay, you're professionally, you're safe, but emotionally, you may still not be fine because the child's life is at stake and the child may actually lose life. So this is one particular area which has generated a lot of debate constantly. There's a lot of first thought, second thought, third thought, and so on. So that's one particular case which is definitely a demanding interprofessional ethical case. One. Second case I would like to present is a neonate, a small child, a newly born child with a history of epilepsy has fallen from a cot in a neonatal ICU, and the crib door was accidentally kept open. We don't know how the crib door was open. By the time the nurse came and saw, the child was already on the floor. And the child looks like the child has had injuries, and we don't know who's accountable for it. So again, this one particular area which has a lot of interprofessional ethical issues. How would you address it? Who is responsible? The nurse who came in and saw the child says that she just reported for duty. The previous nurse said that she had finished her duty and the child was safe. And the reporting doctor, the concerned doctor, the resident doctor says, we don't know what happened. The crib door was open. Since the crib door was open, the child has actually slipped out of the crib and the child has injured himself or herself very badly, and this needs to be accounted for. So how do you address this particular accident? Who is responsible for this particular accident? And how would you make anybody accountable? And how would you make anybody compensate for this particular accident? So the child's life again may be at risk. So whenever there is a risk to life, we need to see who is responsible for it, who is accountable for it, and how do you make the changes? In the sense, how do you make anybody accountable? And in case it's gone bad, how would you compensate for it? So these are issues between professionals, in the sense between the nurse and the doctor, between the doctor and the concerned staff, who was on duty, who was off duty, and who had to actually oversee whether the crib door is locked or not. Why was it not done? Why was it not informed? So these are some issues which are again troubling one's mind, which again come to one's mind when you're looking at the ethical aspect from an ethical perspective. So I just wanted to sensitize you towards the issue of interprofessional ethics, values, and concerns, and see how we can actually manage these issues. I think the best way of managing it is plan for a conflict arising, in the sense you don't do it intentionally, but plan for management of a conflict whenever it is arising, and let it be in the formative stage itself. Don't make it summative. Don't come to the end of a project and then say there was a conflict, so it has to be managed. This is going to be the way. No, it may not work, because it can actually break things and it can actually push things far, and it can take the charm out of that interprofessional collaboration itself. So please don't focus on it as a summative step, but in the formative stages itself, know that there will be conflict, because each person's thought is different. There is a variety, there is a variation in the thought process of each individual itself, and that has to be streamlined. That has to be in the formative stages itself. If you're able to address it, I think it's all the more better. It's much more healthier. It's very comprehensive. And I think that leads to better outcomes and better quality of life issues for the individual and community at large. So thank you so much for your presence and interest in listening to a concept which will increasingly add value to our lives in the coming decades. Very sincere acknowledgements to our esteemed colleague, Dr. Bhagyalakshmi, Associate Professor, Department of Orthodontics, and the management of both the JSS Dental College as well as the JSS Academy of Higher Education at Mysore, for this initiative of setting up of this exclusive group, the interprofessional group, and this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. That was an excellent session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhagya. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Any questions, participants, please type in the chat section. So I have a question.
Yeah, please.
How do we address the conflicts arising due to hierarchy?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question. Thank you, Dr. Bhagia, for this question. There are different types of conflicts, and there's actually a classification of conflicts. And hierarchy is definitely one of the important areas which need to be addressed. What needs to be done is we need to have a proactive strategy in sensitizing the individuals above your zone, above your area of work, in sensitizing them the needs of this particular issue, this particular area, this particular development, etc. It's very essential for us to make them understand what is it that we are looking at, what our intentions are. It's very important for us to have true intentions, and it will translate to a higher ranked officer, a higher ranked professional contributing to our cause when we are making them a part of the team. So if you are looking at it as a low level position, a middle level position, and a higher level position, yes, there is a hierarchy. But if you are involving them indirectly to the working of the team, either by taking their inputs, sensitizing them towards the need of this particular development, and you are enabling a joining of hands at different levels, you can do it, you can achieve it, and you will definitely be successful. But it has to be done with a little bit of strategy. You need to see what works well for you, what works well for them, and what is it that you can provide and what is it that they can provide. So this particular, if you look at, if you do your homework well, if you do your background work well, I think there are opportunities to include the higher ups as a part of your team, and that will definitely bring in a lot of relief in relation to this particular stress that is facing because of hierarchy.
True, sir. Thank you so much. That's a very good suggestion.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bhavya.
As there are no questions, let's invite now our reflection panelist for the session, Dr. Sangamitra Roy. She's a professor and associate director, academics and examination coordinator, Center of Urban Studies, Manipal School of Architecture and Planning, Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Dr. Sangamitra's IPE project has won the best IPE project during her FAMA fellowship, and her project is about effects of built environment on health, a study of migrant worker settlement in Udupi. I repeat, her project is about effect of built environment on health. So this is the beauty of IP. You know how a non-healthcare professional can be a part of a healthcare team. So it's time to think out of the box. We need to involve all those professionals in our healthcare setting who can help us improvise the overall health outcomes of our patients. It can be an architect, it can be an engineer, it can be an IT personnel. So we need to involve them in our IP projects. So over to you, Dr. Sangamitra, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Bhagya, for that kind introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
All right, thank you so much. A very good morning to all of you. And first, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Bhagya and your team for inviting me for this webinar. And many thanks to the management of JSS Dental College and JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research for giving me the opportunity to be part of this wonderful two-day workshop on interprofessional education and collaborative practice. I'm truly privileged and honored. And thank you, Dr. Ram Prasad, for sensitizing us to the, very needed topic of ethics and conflict management. And I hope, as a reflection panelist, I'll be able to do some justice to the, the wonderful things that you taught us. So I will give my best.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So, so if I may start, Sir, Dr. Ram Prasad started with a very apt advice on how important it is to understand the concept of interprofessional education and collaborative practice very well before we go forward, move forward, and we have to take it a little slowly, and only then it will be able to bear fruit in the long run, and it will lead to better initiatives and better health outcomes. And Sir started by talking about, the various conflict that may arise, all at a personal level, and maybe interdepartmental, intradepartmental, even professional rivalries. And that essentially happens, as Sir said, is that basically the differences in perspectives. And but then we have to understand all these things, and we have to deal with all these things. We have to manage these differences and yet bring the benefit to the patient. And there lies the challenge. And that is where our job lies. And like Sir said, the team of experts does not make an expert team. And this is not only valid for the competency of ethics and values, but it is valid for other IP competencies as well. And these could be for various reasons, like we mentioned, Sir mentioned in the beginning and throughout the presentation. And it is very important, like sir reiterated throughout the presentation, that to expect to have a conflict, that is key to it. It is very important to have expect to have a conflict, to have the strategies in place at the formative stage itself, and not at the time when we are doing the project. When we are planning the implementation itself, we should plan to expect conflict and the strategies to take care of them. And this is this is valid for educational practice as well as for medical practice. And the principles of ethics that sir very correctly pointed out, there are many ethics, and then we need to take care of the cultural diversity, the confidentiality, the interest of the patient should be at the core, and we should all work in cooperation, and there should be a trusting relationship, and honesty and integrity, and of course competence. And only when we are following all these principles, we would know that we are in the right direction. And sir also talked about that at the core of IP education and collaborative practice is the concept of to learn about, from, and with each other. And if you notice that, sir said that ethics is actually inbuilt in this concept. It is without this, you cannot actually learn about, from, and each other unless you take care of ethics and unless you manage the conflicts. And we can have the collaborative practice ready health force only when we are ready to handle the conflicts, because then only the team will get to know where to receive help. A very important point that sir pointed out is over the last 50 years, the knowledge has slowly developed on ethical issues and conflict management, and it should be included and adequately considered whenever we take up an IP project. And it is very important to have a broad outlook and let go of the minor issues, and then only the conflict can be reduced. And there he continued saying is that we need to think globally while we have to act locally. So unless we know the local health needs, we cannot provide better health outcomes. And implementation of these will essentially mean that we have taken care of ethics as well as we have managed conflict well. Because actually, if we take care of ethics, like sir explained, the conflict also gets reduced at various stages. And only then we will be able to achieve the sustainable development goals, which also tells us to think globally and act locally. Then, sir, also talked about the current scenario, the shortage of health workers and the policymakers that we are facing currently. And particularly, we felt that need in the COVID situation at present, and how important it is to come up with the innovative strategies and to develop policies and programs accordingly that can facilitate change and that can absorb such issues. And those can be done. There are basically 4 aims of that IP supports, which are to improve outcomes, to improve clinician experience, to improve patient experience, and also to reduce cost. So, and then sir linked that, how we need innovation to, or we need to think innovatively to achieve all these. And how central are beautifully explained all the theory or the information through the 2 case studies that sir talked about. The first case study where the focus was on conflict of thoughts among the health professionals, and the second case study that focused on the accountability issue and many other related issues. And and then finally, sir ended with a takeaway thought, that is, sir said that we need to plan for management of a conflict in the formative stage itself, so that, and only then we can lead to better health outcomes. So I'd really like to thank Sir for sensitizing us and to talking about the entire overview of ethics and conflict management. Lastly, I would like to add one quick thing is that what I feel is like health is a part of a larger ecosystem, and its outcome is influenced by all the domains within it, including technical and social sciences as well, and where we all have to work together. When we were doing our projects, we had to work together, and there as well we have to take care of ethics and conflict management, of course, with other core competencies of interprofessional education and collaborative practice. So thank you, Dr. Ramprasad. That's all from my end. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bhagia, and wish you a very wonderful IP journey ahead. And all of you, actually, all the students and everybody present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. That was an appropriate summary. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Dr. Bhagia. Thank you, Sangamitra, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sangamitra ma'am. Excellent summary. All right, let's proceed to the next session. So participants, by now you all have got an idea about IPECP. In order to start your journey in IPECP, what is the most important skill you need to have? Of course, the skill of being a true leader. So let's hear it from one. We have Dr. Prashant Vishwanath, IQAC Coordinator of JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research, taking up this session on leadership in interprofessional education and collaborative practice. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bhagya. I'll start sharing my screen. Yeah, is it visible, Bhagya?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. Thank you very much once again to the special interest group in interprofessional education and collaborative practice. It's a nice initiative, and I should commend your efforts to, kind of bring in this initiative in the university also. So I'll be focusing on leadership in interprofessional health education collaborative, and my talk will mainly focus on the different areas and on different levels of leadership and how we can take the interprofessional collaborative practice forward. To begin with, I would like to start with the definition of leadership. There are different definitions of leadership, which has been published in various literature, and what I find interesting is leadership is process of influencing the activities of an individual within a group in its effort towards goal achievement in a given situation. The most important line over here, or if you look at the various definitions of leadership, one word which is very much common across all definitions is the word influence. So I believe that leadership is kind of influencing others or influencing the activities or influencing achievement of something. So what I would take this definition here is leadership is a process of influencing the activities of an individual within the group in its efforts towards goal achievement in a given situation. Here we would be focusing more towards the interprofessions education and the interprofessions practice. And in the last 2 days, all the speakers have made my job easy by focusing on various aspects of the interprofession education and interprofessions practice. So what I would be focusing on today's presentation is the hierarchy of leadership. So leadership at an individual level, how as an individual you can pursue the interprofessions education as well as the interprofessions practice, how you can take it to a next level and become a part of a group or part of a team. Like in our institution, we have initiated the interprofessional education and collaborative practice as one of the initiatives as a part of the SIG, right? So you can institutionalize or bring in changes in the institution. The institution can take proactive measures in the implementation and monitoring of the IPE and IPP. Finally, how the professional bodies can standardize or bring in a uniform curriculums by bringing in the components of interprofessions education and interprofessions practice. and how this reflects on the accreditation bodies. That is how the accreditation bodies look at the interprofessions education and the interprofessions practice. So I'll begin with the leadership at the individual level first. At the individual levels, each person has to understand that we can be team leaders for interprofessional care. We are all a part of the healthcare system delivery, and in our own capacity, we can play a very definite role for becoming a leader for the interprofessional care. And we'll be looking at the role of interprofessional care team leaders. What are the skills and competencies of the interprofessional care team leaders? What is a changing context, and what is the way forward? Right? So first, I would like you to reflect upon, have you ever been exposed to a setting of an IPE or IPP? Some of you, those who are in the pre-para, might have an IPE exposure. Most of you in the clinical settings from different diverse backgrounds, you might have a exposure in the IPP. And also we have in our team many members from the life sciences, from the management studies. So we all have got different experiences, but I would like to know from your end, because of a diverse background of this team, have you ever been exposed to a setting wherein we are learning or we are teaching for a diverse group of students, or are we practicing in a diverse group, or are we practicing together? So if yes, I would request you to kindly raise hands, and we would request few of you to share your examples with us.
Yeah, very good morning. Since we have an opportunity to work with the government headquarters hospital at Ooty, the only interprofessional education that is possible is with the diploma in nursing program, which is being offered by the government hospital. And luckily, from this year, the medical college has come up, and we are looking for more interprofessional education. And coming to our experiences, so our experiences with IPE is very limited. Since there are not much opportunity for the nursing students and the pharmacy students at different levels to interact. But interprofessional practice, we do it, as we also provide pharmaceutical care services, pharmacy practice services to this hospital. We take part in the taking decision on dosing of drugs for the individual patients. Okay, and then like monitoring the adverse drug reactions and reporting to the physicians so that appropriate actions can be taken. So this sort of interprofessional practice we do here, but we are looking at the interprofessional education in a bigger way once the medical college comes in.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you for sharing your experience. Anybody else would like to share your experience? Any of the participants, please? Fine, then we move ahead. It was good to have one perspective from the pharmacy background, because I am going to touch upon what Dr. Arun said with regards to the PharmD program. So thank you very much, Arun. And my first objective was, let us look at the team leaders for interprofessional care. So what we need to do as leaders for the interprofessional care. As a group involved in interprofessional care, we need to interact with the team members for working together. It is important to understand the team dynamics. Not everybody would be from the same background. There are diverse professionals in the group. Even in this group, what we have formed, the SIG, we have got group from pharmacy, we have got group members from the life sciences, the management studies, the medical profession, the dental profession. So we are a team here now, and we have to understand that how the team works. That is most important for us. And highlight the importance of collaborative practice. Probably not everyone in the team would be playing a role for a particular collaborative practice, but wherever we are involved for one particular practice, we have to highlight the importance of the collaborative practice and practice, and we should be seeing that it is implemented. And we as members have to share values related to interprofessional care teamwork, then play important roles to achieve common goals. Now, why I would like to highlight this is because we have been part of this team from different institutions, and we are representing a particular institution or a particular department or a particular division. So once we go back, it is an important role that we have to achieve the goal in our own department or the division or in our institution. So from the medical college, probably there might be only about 3 to 4 members in this group. Again, from the dental college, you might have what, three members from this group into this group. But it's important that when we go back to our department or to our institution, we have to see that what role I can play as a leader for bringing up an interprofessional activity. It could be an education or it could be a practice. Then to ensure active participation of all members of the interprofessional care team. So within this team also, what we have, what SIG has been formed, again, I see that, we can go back and again form small teams within the department or within the smaller groups. And these members in the SIG can take a leadership role so that they form smaller interprofessional care teams. Then the next responsibility, what I see, is reporting to the organization. Now, the organization has taken up initiatives in forming this type of an SIG or looking forward for strengthening the interprofessions activities, whether it is the patient education or whether it is in the domain of education or whether it is in the domain of the practice. So we need to kind of report to the organization, and it becomes the responsibility of the organization also to see that the SIG or this kind of a team is working together and bringing out the desired outcomes. So our role as IPECP leaders is, one is to plan, assess, and manage the healthcare for service users. Then task and relationship oriented leadership roles. That is what I was trying to tell, that each person has got a task and relationship oriented leadership role. It is not that just being a member of this team ends our job, that we participate in the activities of this team. It is important for us to go back and again have a task and relationship oriented role. So what am I going to do in my department? That is a task, and how it is related to the interprofessional SIG, what I'm a part of. So these kind of activities have to be defined by each one of us and see that it is taken into a broader sense, or it is implemented in a broader sense. But for this, I have to be a good communicator, I have to be a good coordinator, and I have to be a good facilitator. So each one of us has got a role. So Renuka might come up with a project in physiotherapy. She might put up some interprofession program in physiotherapy. But when she does that, she has to communicate. She has to communicate to the team members. She has to coordinate the activities, call up this thing, and she has to act as also a facilitator, right? So each one of us has to become or play the roles of either communicator, coordinator, and facilitator. And ultimately, all these things will lead to a change in the educational policies and healthcare practice, at least at the institutional level to begin with. And slowly, this institutional practices may be adopted by others and implemented by others as well. The skill and competencies of the interprofessional care team leaders. So I would just like to brief the external members also that the special interest group which has been formed here, we have got about 19 members from different background. But what we look at, what are the competencies and skill that each one of us should be having is that flexibility and creative problem solving. So there might be conflicts. Dr. Ramprasad mentioned a lot of the conflicts, but it is mainly related to practice or some other conflicts which can come in. But as a team, we have to be flexible and look at how we can problem solve. As an individual, as well as a part of this interprofession team, I need to develop networks. And one such good example is today's platform, wherein we have got people from different backgrounds and different institutions, and institutions which have played roles in the leadership and played leadership roles in nurturing this interprofessions education and interprofessions practice. We need to build and maintain relationships. So Ananda was telling in the morning that, in 2009-10 we met, and still we maintain the same kind of relationship that we have developed since the last 10 years. So it's important that we not only build but maintain relationships within the team as well as outside the team, and encourage contribution. So it should not be that, I am a master of interprofessions education or interprofessions practice in the department, and everything only I should be doing. Nobody else should be doing about this. We have to encourage contributions from others outside the team as well as within the team. Within the team, if I see somebody is not contributing or somebody is kind of, feeling left alone, we have to see that as a team, we ask him or pull him along with us, and see that all of us are having the requisite skill and competency to develop and nurture this interprofessional education. One of the competency which is required is to work with teams. We have to develop capacity to listen, capacities to understand, and then probably suggest or work with a team, learn how to work with a team. And in fact, I should be telling that this team is which has been picked up in such a way that everybody has this kind of capacities within them. So this team has to bring in a change, or why this team was brought in, and what is the context that we are looking at. So the context is, Dr. Ramprasad also mentioned that there has been a lot of change in the WHO's perspective, in the professional bodies perspective, in the many institutional perspective, that interprofessions education and practice is an important way of improving the health sciences education as well as health sciences practice. And this context is what we are trying to utilize and bring in the team to facilitate this kind of a change. So the changing context is that there is an interprofessional working in healthcare is evolving, and it is a negotiated process. It is facilitated by supportive leadership at many levels and creating a right structure for the interprofessional care. And healthcare organization is a collective sum of many leaders, such leaders and followers, and clinical and non-clinical and non-clinical activities. So like I already said, there are leaders within our own selves, and these leaders can be from the clinical and non-clinical activities. The successful interprofessional working depends on many factors. Some can be within our control, some may not be within our control, like the regulatory bodies. They are not within our control. So what can be within our control, we can have a direct say in that, but what is not in our control, we may not be able to do much about it. Right? And the way forward for the team members, what I look at an individual level is, first thing is, whatever idea you have for an interprofessions education or for an interprofessional practice, try to institutionalize the idea or the concept what you have. And here I would like to appreciate the efforts of Dr. Bhagyalakshmi, because when she had a FAMER project, she did not keep it to herself. She brought it to the institutional level and she institutionalized the project. So institutionalizing the project, it makes many things easier. It brings people together, and also there is kind of an institutional responsibility also, that the institution feels that I have to see that this is implemented, or the institution should ensure that this particular concept is adopted by the institution. So always, whatever ideas you have, whatever proposals you have, put it forward in the form of a document and take the requisite approvals from the institution, and try to involve the institutional leadership into your project or proposal. And I'm sure that it is going to see colors and good fruitful colors in the end of the time. And not only focus on the desired outcome itself, but also on the relationship of each team member to the work. So once we are developing a proposal or a program, we also need to identify the team members who are going to be associated with this particular project or practice. Then evaluate and critique the performance of tasks of the healthcare professionals and the accomplishment of shared goals and outcomes. So this, I would say, is a kind of a monitoring process. Once you have shared your idea, shared your thought process, you have to see that what is the progress that is happening over a period of time. So have you got the requisite approvals? Has the team met on a few occasions? Have you kind of brought in some kind of an outcomes? Are all the members of the team contributing? So all these things needs to be monitored at a certain period of time and see that are the goals being achieved. So goals and outcomes monitoring also has to be done over a period of time. So this is at an individual level. I would move forward to, as in our institution, what we formed is a special interest group in the for the interprofessional education and collaborative practice. What is the role of IPECP? The role of IPECP, as we envisage, is build interdependent relationship with other professions, and that's the reason that we have a team of all professions, not only from the healthcare, but even apart from the supporting systems. So other professions to improve patient care and advance learning. So somebody might ask me, what is somebody from environmental sciences doing in a healthcare professions team? But there are certain teams which can be worked out. So if we are working with say a team of pulmonologists, environmental specialists, and they can form a separate team and see what is the impact of pollution by a team of multiple different disciplines. So it could be healthcare professionals as well as supporting professionals who come up as a team. Dr. Bhagya also mentioned about that. It's not necessary that it has to be a healthcare professions only what we are talking about. We are talking about an inter-profession. So it could be an engineer, it could be a lawyer, it could be any profession which can add value to a particular disease or in the treatment or in the patient care or in the education. So build interdependent relationship with other professions to improve patient care and advance learning, thus engaging in continuous professional and interprofessional development to enhance the team performance. That is one of the role of IPECP that we envisage. Then provide support for designing and implementing interprofessions education on the campus and with community partners. So we are in the process of designing some of the programs. I'll be sharing one or two examples with you. Then apply leadership practices that support collaborative practice and team effectiveness. Here, I would like to take the example of the pharmacy practice team at both the Mysore as well as Ooty campuses, wherein they have developed certain innovative practices in the education as well as the practice for mainly in the practice area for the PharmD students, and develop, articulate, and sustain a vision for collaborative success. So it is not a short-term goal that I bring in a interprofessions education model or a module or interprofessions practice, but to ensure that there is a success, a collaborative success at the end of 5 years, at the end of 10 years, and then reflect on individual and team performance for the effective teamwork and team-based practices. And also the role of IPECP, what we see is to serve as a thought leader for advancing interprofessions education. So one of the efforts, like conducting today's 2 days of this workshop on interprofessions education, is mainly to promote and let everybody know that this is the kind of thought process that each expert has in their domains. And promote, encourage, and support the academic community in advancing IPE efforts. The whole purpose of having this SIG is to promote, encourage, and support the advancements made in IPE. Then inform policymakers and key influencers about the contribution that the IPE makes to addressing the healthcare needs of the nation. Now, again, not to make you sleep, just I also want to know on this online platform whether you all are still awake and you are there with me. So I want you to reflect as a member of the IPECP. This is mainly for the participants. We have got about 23 people who are there from the participants who are a part of this SIG. So one area that you feel that, either an IPE or IPP can be implemented. So again, I would like you to request you to raise your hand. Think of an area within your own profession. It could be from the life sciences, it could be from the dental sciences, the pharmacy sciences, the medical sciences, any of this, or the management studies. One area where you think that the interprofessions education or interprofessions practice can be implemented.
I believe that in the subject of pharmacology,
okay,
pathology, biochemistry, okay, these are a few subjects wherein the interprofessional education at the lower classes, that is in the first year or second year of various disciplines
can you think of any one particular disease or any one particular treatment modality, Dr. Arun, where you think that
what actually what we practice is, though it is not as I already mentioned, the barrier which we have here, we don't have a medical college and other thing, but what we practice here is, say for example, we take a cardiovascular system. Once the teacher from the pharmacy college completes the pathophysiology and pharmacology, pharmacotherapy of cardiovascular systems, then we invite the medical doctors from the government hospital to discuss about their views about the cardiovascular diseases.
Okay.
And then the nursing staff, okay, the tutors from the nursing school, they come and they speak about the various procedures involved in the cardiovascular diseases. All these are done as a workshop, one-day workshop.
Okay.
Then we ask our students, to the pharmacy students, to present few cases on cardiovascular diseases, which will be assessed and evaluated, and the feedback will be given by all the professionals like doctors, nurses, and pharmacists.
Okay.
So in one day, entire cardiovascular diseases, say for example 4 or 5 diseases, important diseases, are discussed along with the other healthcare professionals. So this is the model that we use here right now.
Fine. Dr. Kiran, would you like to add about the CPCs that is being conducted in the hospital?
As part of regular PG teaching program, every month we have CPCs, wherein a challenging case is given by the pathology department, and our PGs try to solve the case, and the conclusion is given from the pathology side. It's a nice exercise in clinical reasoning and clinical problem solving. It's part of regular PG teaching program now.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kiran, for sharing that. Dr. Renuka, would you like to add about the cardiac rehab? Why I'm talking about this cardiac rehab is because we recently had the cardiac rehab introduced in the hospital, and we do have some plans for establishing the cardiac. I mean, there are some long-term plans for the cardiac rehab. Can you add on to that?
Good morning, all of you, and good morning, Prashant. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to tell about a small experience that I had when we had to start cardiac rehabilitation. So cardiac rehabilitation is a team that we have formed, which is, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
It's a team which is formed at the hospital with a cardiac physician. We have a cardiac physician, and we have a nurse, and we have physiotherapists, we have occupational therapists, and we have psychologists, clinical psychologists, and psychiatrists, and we have a social worker also. This is a team that we have formed, sir. Actually, to be true, it is. But the thing is, actually, we failed, and this time we don't want to what to say. give up. So we made an point that we have a recurrent meetings and all the team members. And of course, the effort from all the team members is not equal. Like always, you should have one person who is always pulling towards, who have an interest towards this practice. And moreover, what practical issues I have seen is they always are busy with practice. The first and primary thing is the hospital management and the practice that is in the hospital, which they are busy with. So they feel that rehabilitation is, or what to say, stroke rehabilitation, pulmonary rehabilitation, or cardiac rehabilitation is it's an extended thing, but it is a very needy and it is an evidence-based practice which has to be put up, which always have a class 1 evidence. So with that, with all effort that we had put, and we were back of them, and with the director and medical superintendent, and we now started with. So we are having OPDs in OPD day. We have found a day where we can all the team can and be under one roof, so that we can see the patient collectively, holistically, and so that the patient will benefit from the rehabilitation. So the students also had been posted now, so they are also getting used to how the rehabilitation setup is going on. So I think they need it. Just first we have to do it, then the exposure comes to the students. So that's how we have started, and we have implemented.
A very good initiative, Dr. Renuka, and I believe that over a period of time you can bring it onto the curriculum also, so that it becomes both the education as well as the practice. The practice, definitely you have made initiatives. Over a period of time, I think it can also be brought into the curriculum as well.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dr. Mahesh from the dental.
Hello, sir. Hello, Dr. Prashant, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would like to bring my orofacial pain here, where we are having collaboration or bringing together the medical college and physiotherapy together for the management of patients. And we occasionally bring in educational protocols between all the departments. Okay, this is the main scenario we have started with the SIG orofacial pain, sir. That is what I wanted to bring it.
That's a good initiative, sir. We are aware about the progress made by the orofacial pain. So again, pain management, especially the orofacial pain management, it is not just a department of oral medicine which can handle it. So they have collaborated with a lot of other departments, and again they have brought in I should say an inter-professions practice into the management of orofacial pain. A lot of good examples by the members of the team. I thank you for sharing your views and the experiences what you carry forward. Anybody from the management side, either Dr. Divya or Dr. Mamta or any Shalini, would you like to add from the management side? What is that area or where you feel that either an inter-professions education or a practice can be brought in? Or how you are doing it? Your students, I have seen them in my own department. So would you like to add, Dr. Divya or Dr. Mamta? So fine, as and when they join in, we will take in their opinions, but we've got a good perspective from the medical, the dental, the pharmacy aspects at how, as well as the physiotherapy, that how different members in this particular team are bringing in certain initiatives for either the inter-professions education or inter-professions practice. More so, I feel that a lot of initiatives are being taken place in the practice area. Slowly we need to bring in those initiatives into the education component of it. So as a team, we will be working more towards this, that shifting from the practice also, or taking the initiatives from the IPP and bringing it into the IPE. So next, we would see the role of the institution, how an institution can play a leadership role in the implementation of the interprofessions education and interprofessions practice. So what the institution can do is, first is a change in the thought process of the academicians. So when we studied, we were never taught in a kind of a interprofessions settings. But now there are settings which have been developed as an interprofession setting where different professional students learn together on the management of a particular disease or on a particular patient. So that is a change in the mindset which the institution can promote and bring in over a period of time. Also, the institution can help in designing and framing a curriculum incorporating the principles of interprofessions education. Especially being deemed to be universities, we have the freedom and the liberty to bring in certain additional components into the curriculum and add value and value add to the curriculum, I should say. So we can adopt a lot of interprofessional education practices as well, interprofession education modules, as well as interprofession practice modules within the curriculum, so that it becomes uniform and it becomes it is adopted by the department. Because what happens is, today I might bringing in change, I might take a leadership role and I might be doing some interprofessions interprofessional education or an interprofessional practice with like-minded people. But at the moment I leave, that it should not end at that particular point of time. So once when you have brought it into the curriculum, it stays there. The department or the team again will follow whatever has been documented into the curriculum. And what the institution can also do is propagate the disease or patient-centric programs. So there are programs on diabetes and management of diabetes, which involves the interprofessional practice, whether it could be counselor, whether it could be a physician, a diabetologist, a dietitian, a nutritional expert. So it is a multi-pronged treatment which is being followed. So similarly, we can have certain disease-oriented or a patient-centric programs which are more interprofessional in nature. And to give some certain examples of how the JSS has played certain important leadership in the interprofessions education as well as practice. So Dr. Arun was telling a lot about the pharmacy practice, but yes, the PharmD program was kind of developed within the JSS system. It was experimented over here and then taken on to the Pharmacy Council of India. But a lot of components of the interprofessional collaborative practice has been brought up into the, it has been documented into the competencies. So within the curriculum itself, you can see that it has been documented that what are the expected competencies of graduate from the PharmD. They should be having interprofessional collaborative practice. So that is one of the expected competencies from the graduates. And once we say that we expect this, definitely in the different modules or in the different teaching learning sessions, this competency would be addressed. Similarly, we are coming up with a certain program called podiatry. Now again, podiatry also in this particular thing, we have brought in the expected competency is to work in an interprofessional collaborative team of healthcare specialists. So what I'm trying to suggest over here is, rather than having small initiatives, once it comes into the program or the curriculum, or especially the innovative programs, it becomes a kind of a mandate that an interprofessional education is brought into the curriculum itself, or the interprofessions practice is brought into the curriculum itself. That is, each subject or each course addresses certain attributes of the interprofessions education or the interprofessions practice. So Dr. Ramprasad did mention what is an interprofession education. It occurs when students or members of two or more professions learn with, from, and about each other to improve collaboration and quality of care. The practice is collaboration in practice between members of two or more professions. So what have we done at JSS is we have formed a special interest group Earlier, we had the concept of special interest group. It was mainly used to promote research into certain specific or niche areas like nanomaterials or cancer biology. So later on, we thought that the the outcomes of a special interest group need not be just research outcomes. We can have certain academic outcomes as well. And with this intention, this special interest group on interprofessions education and collaborative practice was formed this year with the objectives of development and application of the interprofessions education and practice, that is IPECP, across the institutes of JSSAHER. It provides opportunities for interaction and collaboration with peers and implementation of the interprofessional projects. The SIG will also focus on mentoring, networking, and exchanging of ideas among the faculty of JSSAHER. And the SIG will facilitate implementation of projects related to the interprofessions education and collaborative practice. So whether it is a curriculum innovation project or whether it is a practice orientation project, the SIG will try to facilitate and implement such projects. The interaction will help in building community of interprofessional educators who become the agents for change at their institutions, not only at their institutions, but at the department level, at an individual level as well. So one example of such initiative was a Breathe Healthy initiative, which was again taken up by Dr. Bhagya, and congratulations Dr. Bhagya for this initiative, wherein an interprofession team was formed, mainly consisting of ENT surgeons, pediatricians, orthodontists, pediatric dentists, nurse, and social worker. And it was called as Breathe Healthy. And the whole concept was to treat children, identify the happen was an ENT surgeon would work in isolation, the orthodontist would work in isolation, the pediatric dentist or the nurse or social worker would work in isolation about this. And I can still remember yesterday's example of Dr. Prabhakaran with which we started, and it was very well told that the physiotherapist comes sometime later, the dietitian comes sometime later, and each one of them is advising the patient in his perception, but never have they come together and given a conclusive treatment to Mr. Prabhakar. Right? So that should not happen, and that's why it's a team of healthcare professionals who are together and they suggest the treatment for the patient. And this is the practice and action. There is a special clinic. The special clinic functions on every Tuesdays between 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. wherein you can see a team of Dr. Mahendra Pai is a pediatrician, we have a pediodontist, we have an orthodontist, an ENT specialist, all together in looking at a patient with breathing difficulty. Right? So similarly, we have certain programs in place. I told you about the BSc in podiatry, what we have planned. Again, this is a multidisciplinary program, again incorporating both the professional into IPE as well as the IPP into its curriculum. Right? And finally, I would be talking about how the professional bodies and the accreditation bodies play an important role in the implementation of interprofessional education and interprofessional practice. So recently we have had the Medical Council of India, which is now known as the National Medical Commission, come out with the competency-based medical education. And this competency-based medical education has brought in a paradigm shift in the medical education, I should say. And we have seen a lot of components of integration, electives, and a broader scope on definition has been given to the interprofessions education. But what has happened is, it is only within the subjects of the medicine. It has not taken into consideration the interprofessions education with nurses, with physiotherapists, with other healthcare professions like pharmacists. So what we can do is, with this competency-based medical education, we can develop modules within these systems to see that we bring in a component of the interprofessions education as well as the interprofessions practice. So the role of professional bodies is to identify such practices which is being followed and bring it into the curriculum. So whether it is a National Medical Commission, the Dental Council of India, the Pharmacy Council of India, or the other health professions council, the Nursing Council, the Rehabilitation Council, they can take up such examples of interprofessions education and interprofessions practice and bring it into the curriculum of the programs. So once it is brought into the curriculum of the programs, it becomes standardized. It becomes standardized, and the delivery of the IPP and IPP through a standardized curriculum is uniform across all the institutions in the country. Right? And ultimately, what will happen with this? This will lead to an improved quality of education, outcomes, and patient healthcare. So one of the examples, like what I said before, is the PCI, which is adopted the PharmD curriculum, which is very much having components of the IPP more and IPE also to a certain extent. Then finally, the role of accreditation bodies, whether it is the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, the National Board of Accreditation, or any other accreditation bodies, national or international. All of these have got the components of interprofession education and interprofessions practice. So recently, when the NAC revised its health sciences manual, it has taken in inputs from all the health sciences institutions and added certain metrics on the implementation and adoption of interprofessions education and practice. And there are marks allotted for this. But what happens is, during the process of the accreditation assesses the levels of the implementations and the outcomes of the interprofessions education and interprofessions practice at a particular institution, and then based on it, the grading is done. Because of this, there is a national and international recognition for the programs which are integrating the IP and IPP. The best example, again, I would say, is the PharmD in our institution. The best practices across institutions in IPE and IPP can be shared. Learning experience, we can learn from what Manipal is doing. Manipal can see at what JSS is doing, of course. And as leaders, we can share our practices with others who can see what the institutions are doing across for the IPE and implementation of IPE and IPP. So one outcome of this, following best practices across the PharmD program, was we got the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education certification, that is from the USA, ACP certification from the USA for the PharmD program. Again, here we had to emphasize a lot about how we are actually following on the IPE and IPP. And definitely, this kind of international recognitions do help the students once they go out or for the institution's perception. So this was all what I had to talk about the leadership, how each one of us can become a leader in taking forward the initiatives in the institution, in the interprofessions education and interprofessions practice. So thank you all, and session is open for questions.
Thank you, sir. Very inspiring. Participants, any question, please?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Animesh. You're sharing a lot of resources. We'll be going through that.
Arun?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is a general question to all the panelists. I just want to know. See, within the pharmacy institution, we have two streams. One is pharmaceutical sciences, another one is pharmacy practice. I belong to the department which is pharmacy practice, and there are other 6-7 departments which focus only on pharmaceutical sciences, which is more towards the technology. Suppose if we involve the students' learning and the teaching aspects between pharmaceutical sciences and pharmacy practice, do we call it as interdisciplinary? It may not be interprofessional because both are within the pharmacy. So can we call it as interdisciplinary education?
Yeah, I think you can call it as interdisciplinary because there are two different disciplines, like what you yourself said, that the sciences as well as the practice.
Yeah.
So definitely you can call it as an interdisciplinary, provided you have documentation and evidence that these students, the practice students go to the sciences students are posted to the practice.
Yeah. Okay, so there can be models developed for such teaching learning process, right?
Yes, yes, definitely it can be done.
Yeah, okay. That's a clarity I need. Thank you, Prashant.
I think if there are no more questions, Dr. Bhagya, we can sum up the session.
Yes, sir.
I thank Dr. Sudha for moderating this session. She's going to summarize this. Over to you, Dr. Sudha.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant. Am I audible?
Yeah, madam, you're audible.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bhagya, for providing this opportunity. And I thank the special interest group of IPECP and JSS Academy for providing this opportunity of being a reflection panelist. Thanks, Dr. Prashant, because you have given a well-organized, cohesive and comprehensive lecture. Actually, when we saw the topic, it looked very complex. And the task is also complex and the topic is also complex. You made it very simple. And that simplification is similar to your biochemistry, how a complex protein is broken down to the simple final amino acid. And not only that, you have proved your leadership quality there by bringing in all the members into the team and made a practical demonstration of how a leadership skill should be developed. Thank you for that again. And to summarize what the lecture was all about, we started with the organized way of classification of the leadership from being an individual level to a leadership level, then made it institutionalized, and then involved the accreditation and the professional bodies. So in the individual level, the discussions were related to the interaction, how the team leaders has to be selected, how the interaction within the team members has to be done, and how the team dynamics has to be understood and made clear to all the team members, and what is the importance of collaborative practice, and the value sharing the values to be shared among the members, then the role to be played to achieve the common goals, then reporting to the organization whatever is happening in the individual or in the department, and providing or ensuring active participation of each member in the special interest group. Not only in the special interest group, any group that has been formed, so that they can be providing the they can provide the necessary input to the institution, so that the institution can follow up and evaluate as well as provide encouragement to the concerned group members. Next, it was about the task and relationship oriented leadership in IP working module. And as the demonstration was done, he invited Dr. Kiran, Dr. Renuka, Dr. Mahesh, and explained what is going on in JSS, which is a budding special interest group. And now this has expanded to its horizons. Later, the institutional level changes, the institutional level at the level of institution, the important important statement that was done was change in the thought process of the institution and importance of maintaining what has been initiated. It is not that initially we start with the Josh and do it, but it has to be maintained in the long run. And even if the person who is the leader is not there, still the process has to continue. As he clearly stated, leadership is not a simple role, it is a process, and this process has to be continued. Then he gave examples of what are all the institutional activities that are happening at JSS, especially the competency of the graduates in Farm D, and gave examples about podiatry, then the breathe healthy initiatives, and they plan to implement BSc podiatry course. So, the achievements of the special interest group is going on, adding up one over the other. And finally, it is not only originally it was meant for research, now it has come down to the practice. and practice as well as in the interprofessional group. Next was the institutional level. Following this, professional and accreditation bodies, how they play a role in regulating the IPE as well as IPP. So though we have said that the CBME was introduced, there was no mention of interprofessional education there. So probably in immediate future, once we have tried to prove all that the interprofessional education can be introduced as a module, even in CBME curriculum, and the importance of interprofessional module, importance of interprofessional education has been brought in, and then the ultimate goal of improved health education, health care, and better health outcome was clearly explained and made it very lucid by Dr. Prashant. So this is the summary of Dr. Prashant, and he made it very interactive by keeping all the participants alert and preventing them from going to sleep, because this is the last session. And I will finally put a statement that this was the jewel of the 2 days workshop program and the jewel in the crown of the 2 days workshop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, for that wonderful summary. Over to you, Dr. Bhagya.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very sweet summary. Thank you, Dr. Prashant, sir. So thank you all for being with us today and yesterday. We hereby end up the workshop, and I request you all to give your honest feedback. The link is posted in the chat section. So please do the needful. And dear SIG members, I shall connect to you all very soon, and we shall discuss about our next steps. So till then, take care, and thank you all once again.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bhagya. Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Bhagya. Thank you, Anand, sir.
Thank you, all the participants.
Thank you.